Jalen Jacoby is presented by Bullet Bourbon Frontier Whiskey.
He is Jalen Rose. I'm David Jacoby. We are Jalen Jacoby. What is it that we do?
We give the people what they want.
James Harden took the court for the Rockets. We have Charles Woodson joining us later on in the show, but we start with the big news in the NBA. Giannis Antetokounmpo signed a 5-year, wait for it, $228 million contract. Jalen, I know you love this. How did you feel when you saw the news?
Congratulations to Giannis and his family. Work well put in, well-deserved, the reigning back-to-back MVP, who's done a terrific job of resurrecting the Milwaukee Bucks franchise and put them in a position to be a contender these last couple of years. It's grateful. It's gratifying to see a great player like this, Jacoby, not only remain with the team that drafted him, but also in a small market. When you look around the landscape of the league, one of my favorite things that has happened over the last few years is we've seen Dame Lillard stay in Portland, Tatum, Bam Adebayo, Donovan Mitchell. We're seeing a lot more young players deciding to stay with their teams. Bradley Beal in Washington versus forming super teams, because over the last 3 seasons, and we've talked about that on this show, it isn't necessarily the best thing for the league when you look at a list of your top, say, 15 or so players, and half of those guys have been on different teams over the last couple of years. So I appreciate the ownership. I appreciate the staying power and the longevity. Now I think the Bucks have the validity when they go to recruit free agencies, recruit free agents, when they're on the phone trying to do deals. They know Giannis is locked in. So that helps them now really go make those breakneck moves.
Oh, Giannis is locked in. Giannis is going to be there for quite some time. You got to remember, this is an extension to his existing contract. So he's going to be there for 6 more seasons if he plays the whole contract through. And I agree with you on a lot of that stuff. It is good for the league. It is good for small market teams. But Jalen, you know me. I have to go negative. So we have to introduce a character on this show, Negative Jacoby. Now, Jalen, I'm not saying Giannis shouldn't have signed the deal. I'm saying Giannis shouldn't have signed the deal now. The exact same terms, 5 years, $228 million, are available to him after this season. So what does he gain by signing it now? Nothing. Just the security between him and the franchise, maybe no media scrutiny. It doesn't hang over the season. But you know what happens when it hangs over the season, when you become a free agent? It puts pressure on the team to build around you. And if you look at the relationship between Giannis and this team, it's been good. It's been very, very prosperous in the regular season. This is the story of the Bucks every single season. They have a great regular season, and then they go to the playoffs, and then they lose. They went to the finals once. Look at that. The Eastern semis, the finals. Then they lost in the first round for 2 years. And this is sort of what happens to this team. They've got this gimmicky defense where they protect the rim and they let you shoot threes, and it leads to a great regular season record. But guess what? It fails in the playoffs. And they did make some moves in the offseason. They brought in Drew Holiday, which is very helpful because Giannis was the #1 usage rate player in the NBA last season. #1. That probably shouldn't be Giannis Antetokounmpo. That will knock down a little bit with Drew Holiday. They also lost some pieces. They also traded away a lot of picks to get Drew Holiday, which will hinder them making moves moving forward. And Jalen, if you're Giannis, there's absolutely no reason to sign that this year. There's none. I really don't see the benefit because if they flame out again in the first or second round of the playoffs, that opens things up. That opens up your possibilities. Oh, I don't know. There's a team down in Dallas that really wants you. There's a team in Dallas that really wants you. And who's there? Luka Doncic. So you gave them 5 years of flaming out in the playoffs. Go down to Dallas, team up with a real superstar who complements you better than anybody that's on that roster now. And then you've got 5 more years down there where you can build a legacy and a career and win some championships.
Or we're probably going to look up in a couple of years and more people are going to do what I just suggested, Jacoby. You may see Luka Doncic and Trae Young actually stay with the teams that drafted them and be the all-star, the all-NBA performer that actually leads them to championships and try to create a legacy. And by the way, you can look at the times that the Bucks flamed out in the playoffs.
There's a lot of them.
That's called growing something. But that's called growing something, Jacoby. It's not going to happen overnight. And I know in this microwave generation, we feel like it ain't going the way I want it, so I'm going to just leave.
Yes.
When LeBron James went to Miami and when Kevin Durant went to Golden State, you know what both of them did after they won 2 championships? They left. Dirk Nowitzki stayed in Dallas. He won 1 championship, Jacoby, but he's going to be immortalized. He's going to have a statue in front of the building, a street named after him. Like, he has a level of stability that I'm sure that he's happy with that Giannis wants to achieve. Everybody's situation is different. I don't want people to judge Giannis's career and be like, oh, if he don't win 4 championships, then he shouldn't have stayed in Milwaukee. No, we're not going to judge him like that. The Milwaukee Bucks are a relevant team. He's an MVP caliber player. I believe because he's one of the best players in the league, Jacoby. Don't underestimate people now going to want to come play with him. What's going to happen when other free
Milwaukee
agents
has a
in
long
2021
history of
come
free
up?
agents just flocking to Milwaukee. It's been year after year, free agents just flock to Milwaukee. A long history of big free agents signing in Milwaukee. This is the franchise that Lou Alcindor asked his way out of. Well, there is a star player in the NBA. There's a star player in the NBA who wants to move teams so badly. Talking about star players moving teams. James Harden wants to move teams so badly. He's like Marshawn Lynch in the game yesterday. Like, I'm just going to show up so I don't get fined. He looked like his own self somewhat, just hitting impossible step back after impossible step back. Jalen, he played well, but you noticed some details about this game that you wanted to highlight, and what are those?
Well, I noticed a couple of details that you can't allow your personal life to then start perfect your performance, which I talked to you about, which now affects your value. And so you can champagne and campaign with little baby. You can champagne and campaign in Vegas. But then once you miss practice, Jacoby, now people are going to start analyzing your performance as one of the MVP caliber players in the game that's getting top dollar. And so now when you show up to play with John Wall and Boogie Cousins, let's see how you're able to adapt to them. We're not going to just only isolate you. We're not going to only just clear it out for you. And so after they gave it to John Wall a couple of times, look at the time on the clock and look at the defense. Stop the clock. Look, it's 5 people back on defense. That is not a good shot, Jacoby. He just happened to get fouled. And right there, I can't jump. Even I would have caught that from the dunker spot and laid that up.
He had his hands around his knees. Like, he didn't even have his hands up in his chest.
And so now, Jacoby, trust me, I know how this works. I've been traded multiple times. Show this footage. When you show, look how many black jerseys are back on D. And look at the shot that he's pulling up. Don't look at the result. Think about the mentality. The mentality is that he's not locked in just yet. And I'm not overreacting to preseason games. I know James Harden can get buckets and he's going to average 30. But the way that he gets them is an acquired taste as an isolation player. And so now, don't think Daryl Morey or Sean Marks went to bed last night and felt like we got to make this deal happen. I must do this deal. They're not feeling like that this morning. They're seeing what you see. And you know James looked at his phone during halftime. What did he see on his phone at halftime?
He saw this picture.
About James at halftime?
He saw this picture at halftime because it was all over social media. The one on the right, everyone's clowning him for looking like Rick Ross or saying he looks like my man Kendrick Perkins. But I also want to point out the one on the left is from within 2 days. So this is just about angles. And anyone who's ever taken a picture of themselves or others knows that it all depends on angles and perception. And the perception is not always the reality. The gentleman on the left and the gentleman on the right are the exact same person. Now, he did look like he might have, maybe not got that much rest, but anybody who watches this show sees my eyes on Friday knows that I got little bags under those too.
I got a couple of things on that. So let me just say 2 things on that. As somebody that's been Kangaroo Jalen before, let me just tell you this. I necessarily don't mind when people body shame athletes because, especially current ones, because beyond being paid to play your sport, you're actually paid to be in shape. So it kind of goes with the territory, but I'm glad we, for context, put up a picture that was 2 days later versus what people saw last night, and that's my point. The left is reality. The right is perception. And what happens, Jacoby, is when people think that you're unhappy and you make the kind of money and have the kind of power that you make, now everybody's there to pounce on you And now that hurts your value, which makes it tougher for the Rockets to now move you to the Sixers or the Nets. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But after last night, you don't get closer to a deal. You get further away.
It is now time to be joined by a new character on the program, ESPN's senior hair analyst, a gentleman by the name of Jalen Anthony Rose. Here he is, ESPN's senior hair analyst. And we've got some new looks in the NBA that we need our senior hair analyst to take us through. And we're going to start with this gentleman right here who is sporting a brand new look. What do you think of DeRozan's DeFrozen over here?
I like what you said, the Frozen. I am not mad at it all. It looked like a throwback to the 60s or the 70s. Steph, MVP player on the floor. The braids look like a little bit of a struggle, but he's trying to pull him off the best way he can. Ja Morant flying down the lane, dunking with two hands, lost two bobby pins. I had to look twice for De'Aaron Fox without his hair because normally he's a blur and is flying up and down the floor with them.
And there's one thing I really want everyone to point out, and that's not that these excellent athletes have new hairstyles. It's also, Tommy, play it again. In the first shot in the background, you'll see someone else sporting a new hairshot style, and that is my man, Coach Popovich. Tommy, play it one more time. Look at Coach Pop back there. Look at that. He's letting it grow. He's letting it grow. He's like, I'm not going to a barbershop. He's like, I'm in the high risk age bracket. I'm not going to a barbershop. Coming up next, make sure you don't change the channel. We'll be joined by Charles Woodson. Make sure you stick around to watch this man address what's happening in the current state of Michigan football and much more.
That's my dog.
You are watching Jalen and Jacoby, presented by Bullet Bourbon Frontier Whiskey.
Coming to you live from Pier 17 in the South Street, Seaport District of Manhattan, and brought to you by Chase. Welcome back to Jalen and Jacoby. We are bracing for a blizzard here in New York City. Our next guest is not. Charles Woodson doesn't just join us. He joins us from the golf course. Thank you so much for taking some time mid-round to join us on Jalen and Jacoby.
Hey, man, appreciate y'all having me on, man. I love y'all cat show, man. So, hey, I appreciate it.
Thank you for taking the time. Now, we're going to get to Michigan football later, but we want to start on a more positive note, okay? We're getting towards the end of the NFL season. It feels like it's kind of getting down to Aaron Rodgers or Mahomes or perhaps Derrick Henry for MVP. Right now, who is your NFL MVP?
Ooh, man, that's a good question, man. I like the guys that you mentioned. I would like to just throw Josh Allen in there for a second just to kind of tease that. But I think right now, Aaron Rodgers is going to have the edge right now. I think that, to throw for as many touchdowns as he's thrown for, and to have less than 5 interceptions, that kind of tells you about the efficiency, the accuracy, the way he takes care of the football. And they've gone on a nice little streak, man, the latter part of this season. So I think the way he has that team performing, he seems like he's in the zone. I think I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers at 1.
First and foremost, producers, y'all need to back up for a second and let me cook. This is Charles Woodson on the show. C. Murder is joining us. The only defensive back to ever win the Heisman Trophy, okay? Won the national championship with Michigan. Won the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers in the Green Bay Packers. This guy's the most accomplished defensive back since Deion Sanders. Put some respect on my brother's name. No doubt about it. And that ain't opinion. That is all facts on facts on facts. So you're the perfect guy to ask about these dual threat quarterbacks. You mentioned Josh Allen, Kyler Murray. So many guys, Lamar Jackson, that beat the teams with their feet. Do you think those guys can now translate that into actually being the kind of pocket passers that can also win you a Super Bowl one day?
Well, first of all, I do think they are the type of guys that can win Super Bowls. But let's not make these guys have to be pocket passers. Let's allow them to use their athletic abilities in the best way that wins certain games. So if you think about Lamar Jackson, they're a running football team, and a lot of that is because of what he does with his legs. Now, sometimes you're going to need him to get hot as a passer, but you don't have to specifically make him a pocket passer for them to be successful. I look at Kyler Murray. He's a guy, man, short in stature, but he can really sling it. And the best part about his game, man, is he gets down, man. He ain't taking too many hard hits. But these guys can lead you to a championship being dual threat guys. And let's not put them in that square box as far as saying, hey, they got to be a pocket passer to get it done. Now, do they have to improve? Does Lamar Jackson have to improve a little bit on his passing accuracy? Absolutely. But he doesn't have to be a pocket passer.
So you were on the golf course. Now you're just straight up driving through the streets on a golf cart. Like, where are you going?
He's rich, Jacoby.
Man, hey,
he's retired, dog.
I'm just riding. When you got a little time on your hands, I actually, man, got me a good workout in. So I was actually coming out of the gym. So you got to get your pump on. That's why I got the cutoff shirt on so y'all can see, man. I'm still working. I'm still working, baby.
See, the Lions should have drafted him this year. How about that, Jacoby? I walked to get a package the other day. Charles Woodson sent me some wine. And you know what else Woodson sent me? Some whiskey. So you're a connoisseur. So let's talk about that, Charles. I know we can talk about the NFL and the NCAA. Let's talk about you and how you're making an impact in the spirits business.
Yeah, so again, man, to me, it's about not putting people in the box, man, and people being able to do different things. And, I sent you the wine. I've been in the wine industry, man, for going on like 15 years now. And, I picked up bourbon a few years ago. I started off with Woodford Reserve, and I really enjoyed bourbon. And I really enjoy everything about bourbon because it's so many different angles that people use to try to make a really good bourbon, kind of similar to wine. So we can put our own influence on what we want to do. And so I decided, man, bourbon is uniquely American. It's what we do here in the States, man. And so I was like, you know what? I want to try my hand at a bourbon. And there we are, man, the Woodson Bourbon Whiskey at your doorstep.
All right, it's time to talk about it, guys. Michigan football. I mean, this is probably the worst season in my lifetime, and probably yours too. 2-4, not playing Ohio State, not playing Iowa. So, Charles, what happens next with this football program?
Man, it has been a rough season. I think we started out, man, we really started out on a high note with the first game. We thought we had, we thought we found our quarterback. We were rolling, and then all of a sudden, man, we got smacked in the mouth and reality hit us. I feel like for this team, man, I just look at different games and a lot of times the way we approach the game, I feel like we allow the same things to happen to us over and over again, especially on the defensive side of the ball. When you look at the way that Ohio State always attacks us every year, we're crossing routes because we play so much man-to-man football, and they continue to beat us with the same thing because we play the same defense, run the same stuff. I think offensively, we seem to move east and west a lot and towards the sidelines and not really a real vertical threat down the field, and we don't really push teams and make them respect us down the field. So we have to be able to establish those things, man, to try to, invoke some fear to the opponents. But if everything's always in front of our opponents, with our offense, then nobody's going to respect you. And then they're going to load up, and then they're just going to beat you up. They're going to stop the run. You're not throwing the ball down the field, so they're not respecting that, so they're sitting on routes. So there's some things, man, we definitely have to correct. And this year wasn't good for us because we didn't correct anything. We're getting beat by Indiana. We're getting beat by all the other people we got beat by. I don't even know who they are. I don't care no more. But we got to get better in those areas. You know what I'm saying?
I'm glad.
Thank you so much.
I can't front. I'm glad we didn't have to play Ohio State this year. That would not have been a happy day. And I see you working, killing it with the Ascots. And I know you didn't want to show up working next to Urban Meyer that day. Not this season.
No, it's so hard. It's hard being on the show with Urban, right? Because, that's our rivalry game. And you always want to have some back and forth with the person who went to the other school, right? And so the last couple times I've been on the show, man, I haven't had any get back, with my team because we're out there getting crushed. And then in particular, when we're playing against Ohio State, it's like, man, we have no shot. You're getting blown out by 20 and 30 points. And I'm looking to the side of me and Urban. You know, I got to give it to him, man. He's always respectful. But I know he's sitting back like, yeah, I told you, man. Y'all can't do nothing with us, man. So that's hard for me on this show.
Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you. Have a great round of golf. And you're welcome back to join us anytime.
You,
Everyone
dog.
else, stay tuned. We got much more for you on Jalen Jacoby.
Hey, Jalen, I got one more question, man. I was in a restaurant the other day, and you had the bat on your shoulder. My wife said, man, why does he have a bat on his shoulder? So tell me what the bat was for, because we couldn't hear it. I got to be able to tell her what you had the bat for.
So the bat is like Linus with his blanket. That's my protection. And so when I realized that they were going to give me a podcast and let me put influential Hall of Fame brothers up on the wall, I felt like carrying a bat made me an unapologetic black man, like Grandmaster Flash and Melly Mel back in the day on the Message video.
Yeah.
And Trek from Naughty by Nature.
Thanks for so much for joining us. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to Jalen and Jacoby. First of all, we want to give a shout out to Charles Woodson for joining the show from the golf cart, and also give a shout out to Keontae Johnson of Florida and wish him a speedy recovery.